Hey guys, this is Bill with Bill PCs, and we traveled all the way from Chicago, Illinois to beautiful Boulder, Colorado to visit the Jawa headquarters and get to know the people behind the brand.
Hi, I'm Amanda Stefan, co-founder and CEO of Jawa.gg.
I'm Andrew Wan, co-founder and CTO of Jawa.gg.
Jawa is the community-driven marketplace to buy and sell gaming gear. Anything related to gaming should be bought and sold on Jawa. Today, the biggest categories are custom gaming PCs and graphics cards, but people are selling everything from gaming mice to random socks they got at a gaming conference also. So our seller community on Jawa is like the expert gamers. They're the ones who everyone has that person in their friend group who you'll ask all of your tech questions to, your advice on what to buy. Those are our sellers, and so they represent a lot of the voice of Jawa, but I think a lot of the buyers and community are more of these people who are entering the gaming category for the first time or really first starting to level up and get serious about getting better performance gear to game on. And so it really serves like entry level to the most expert gamers are on Jawa. I have an older brother and sister, and growing up, we always played video games, mostly console and arcade games, but grew up with N64, Sega Genesis. Mario Kart was a huge part of my childhood and loved it, but really never thought that my career would be in gaming. It wasn't until during the pandemic when I moved to Boulder kind of shortly before it started and didn't have much of a community here, was isolated and started gaming again with my brother and sister and picked up PC gaming for the first time. Started to tinker around with making my own build, and that was what exposed me to the craziness. Supply shortage, pandemic, you couldn't find any parts at reasonable prices. That's what really started the whole idea of Jawa. Miss Pac-Man's Speed, to be exact, is my jam. And I remember in college playing it just on my desktop and getting really good at it, and then going to an arcade, seeing the machine. And after a couple tries, I was like, oh, I can actually get pretty good at this. And it became this whole thing where then every time I went to a different bar with an arcade or a new city, I'll seek out where an arcade bar is and I'll just leave my mark of having the high score in Miss Pac-Man there. And it just became this thing that was fun. And so since then, people just always give me like Miss Pac-Man trinkets and things as gifts. So it just became this big part of my identity. But it really just started with, I think I was supposed to be doing schoolwork and I was just getting really, really into Pac-Man.
I grew up on computers. My dad had I think I learned to play chess on a Radio Shack Tandy pre-286 back in 1990. So, I've been gaming in some form or another my entire life. I remember the transition from EGA graphics to VGA graphics, playing on DOS, a lot of old school Apogee games, Crystal Castles and Secret Agent, those sorts of things, Commander Keen. Most of my more formative times in gaming were a little later, a lot of RTS stuff. So Civ 2, Warcraft 2, StarCraft, Brood War, the universe of Blizzard stuff. All the Command and Conquer stuff, played them to death, modded Tiberian Sun back in the day. Got to know my networking just because of, playing a lot of video games with friends in high school. Never really thought I would get into coding as a career, but I was always sort of the tech guy or computer adjacent. So when I went to college, I got into software development and programming, took to that pretty quickly. I think that was the time period where I kind of was kind of at peak competitive gaming, not in ranked things or anything like that, but just a lot of Counter-Strike and Dota and LAN era gaming, put it that way, with big groups of friends. 2021, I think I met Amanda to help start Jawa, and that was the point at which I started getting back into looking at gaming hardware and just the madness of the supply shortages. And it's really different from being a kid and going to Fry's and just buying whatever you want. Kind of shocked to see the social aspects of the community really changed, especially since I graduated from college and Discord is such a thing now. So got back into it then and been building this ever since. Having something purpose-built is just really important. So there's part of this that's okay, sure, we have specs and we kind of have a listing process that's more for gamers or PCs, but I think where it really shines is down to support and community. So, if you have questions about what are you building and what do you actually need, it's pretty hard, especially if you don't know a ton about computers. If you didn't grow up building computers, it's really not clear what you actually need to play whatever you want to play on whatever hardware you happen to own.
Our Discord community has almost 20,000 members. So that's how a lot of people first come to Jawa, is they'll enter the Discord, they see that we're really trustworthy. We have these expert sellers giving them free advice, and then they start to buy things on Jawa. And actually when we first started, it was during, again, pandemic, peak supply shortage, the 30 series was released, and we saw all of the chatter that was happening in these different subreddits and Discords of gamers who were really pissed off that they were getting scalped and scammed. And so that was the impetus for Jawa. And our whole go-to-market at first was around, we sourced 30 series new graphics cards and we would just give them away to the community. And so that was really just representative of what we stood for and became the ethos of Jawa. And then we got all these people on our platform who were deciding to not sell their graphics card for 3x the price because they actually just wanted it to go into the hands of another gamer, and they loved that they then built a relationship with the person who bought it and they told them how it was working for them. And so that's the type of thing, just a very special experience. Currently, Jawa is only available in the United States. We will absolutely be international one day. We just see as there's so much untapped activity in our core market and so much we want to do to have like the best experience here before we go expanding. I would say Canada has to happen. Canada's the easy one in the next year. In terms of Europe and expanding beyond that, that's likely three years from now, I would say. But we love the excitement around it.
And it's something we'd love to do, but you know, you can imagine just like the pain of figuring out like how do you deal with like a customs label going from even the US to Canada, especially now, much less France to Britain or something like that. Solvable, but it takes a lot of time and there's a lot we need to build.
When people especially come in and get their first gaming PC with Jawa, we want to then be their home for all of the information and upgrades they need. We tell them what their upgrade path is. We connect them with the sellers for when they need to upgrade their GPU or CPU. We actually tell them where they're bottlenecked. And so they come to us in our community for the source of truth, and then they make those transactions, which today is mostly in gaming PCs and GPUs, but then ultimately it's like everything in your battle station and gaming room. You want to be a streamer, we hook you up with a streaming kit. And you just do all of those things in our ecosystem. And we have such an amazing community of sellers. For me, my goal is I want, our top 100 sellers to be millionaires because Jawa has grown so much and they're doing such good business on our site. Like that is what success looks like to us.
Our success is intimately bound with the sellers, right? They are the community. They're the people who are like most active in our Discord. They're helping us drive like product direction. We owe them a lot. So there's a lot of responsibility we take to that, and we want them to like flourish. The way that we succeed is if they succeed. There's no other way around that. In terms of figuring out how to get into these other categories and different profiles of sellers as we grow, I think that's really challenging. It's really different when we're selling a couple pre-built or, onboarding someone who like has a warehouse full of parts or something like that. We really want to not lose focus of being able to really nail that kind of boutique experience, but also be able to like service like larger sellers and kind of differentiate things. This isn't exactly a product feature, but there's threading that needle of being able to have lots of supply enter the market in a way that's transparent and useful and like has really good value while not watering down that experience of, finding that really cool one-of-one pre-build that you can't find anywhere else.
Jawa has been put on the map when different tech tubers have covered us. And one time early on was Bitwit did a surprise video to us. He bought some stuff undercover from Jawa, and I was like in a meeting when I saw it come up, and it was called like, is Jawa a scam? And I was like, oh my God. And it turns out it wasn't a scam, thank God. He had a great experience, but things like that just put us on the map. And the reason that Bitwit did that video on us is because our community, our sellers, our buyers, the people in our Discord would just chat up Bitwit all the time in his comments and in his live stream saying like, hey, review Jawa. I just listed my build on Jawa. Can you do a review? Or, he'd heard about it from our community, which is why he did the video about us. And then that's what put us on the map. And it's kind of like, we've had several of those things happen that we directly attribute our success to. And it's because of our community. And so we've grown a lot with still a very lean team. And so we know there's always going to be more requests from the community than we could possibly do, but we try so hard to do right by them so that to thank them for what they've done for us so far and make sure that we're continuing to grow in a way that they're still very proud to be a part of the Jawa community and will still advocate for us in that way.
The community really like brings in a lot of interest that is just like almost out of our control, but we're very grateful for. It's like what makes it kind of fun.
Also in that time, and now, I mean, electronics is like the #1 targeted industry for fraud. And so oftentimes there are a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of those videos with also like Wish. I bought a graphics card off of Wish, and it's like, they'll get like a piece of paper and it is a scam. And so there was this whole thing of Jawa came out and we're like giving away graphics cards and these giveaways. And we have things that are like almost too reasonably priced where people were like, is this a scam? And so there was genuine interest in like, how is it that in this industry that's so fraught with scammers and scalpers that Jawa is actually a place that seems to be trustworthy and legitimate. If you are trying to be a PC builder on Jawa, we have a ton of amazing builders, and so the competition gets just kind of stronger every year, every month. But I would say the successful ones, first of all, look at our content around, we have the Seller Academy. We work with Zach's Tech Turf, who's actually an advisor in Jawa, and he's made a ton of good content about how to take good photos of your builds, how to have a good listing, description, and title. And actually every Friday he does a review of his favorite build on Jawa. And so you start to see patterns. I think sellers who are successful have a real brand and story and voice. And so some examples might be Oyako PCs. This is a passion project with him and his son. And so he talks a lot about that. Behind the scenes, we see that about 70% of buyers are actually chatting with the sellers before making a purchase. They want to know that this seller is trustworthy. Oftentimes they have questions. Is this the right build for me? Can you customize this? So if you are, being proactive, like Built PCs, I know every time they actually ship a build, they send out a note to the buyer saying, hey, just want to let you know what to expect when you get it. Let us know if you have any issues. Stuff like that really just makes it personal, and the buyer feels like they understand who the seller is. They're excited to work with them. They know that if something goes wrong, they'll have someone that they can contact to troubleshoot. And so those are the sellers that we see really like just moving into the highest tier. And pictures. Like it's so important. And there's tons of resources that we have or online, or look at our top sellers where you'll see some commonalities of pictures. I would really encourage people to check out Jawa, join our Discord community, especially if you feel like you're intimidated by the thought of building a PC or even getting into it to figure out what pre-built to buy. I really encourage you to go to the Discord, get to know our community. You'll find tons of answers there. And it's a very welcoming place, which is something we're really proud of, that we've pretty much maintained a healthy environment in this ecosystem with a really friendly community who loves to help everyone else. So I'd encourage you to go there. You can tell us like features that you want to see, any ideas. Like the whole staff is really tuned into our entire community, and so would love to see people there.
We get busy here. There's just like too few of us doing too many things all the time, but that's life. I think there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's something about business where you might think, oh, this is like all pretty abstract, but we pay a lot of attention to our Discord server, pay a lot of attention to whatever's happening. Like I live in the bug squashing channel. If you feel intimidated or you just kind of want to know that this thing is real or not, like go in there, feel very free to interact with us, file those bug reports, try to break the site, tell us what's wrong, tell us what needs to be done, and we will get on it. I'd encourage you to find us because we're people and we are present, and we do take your feedback like rather seriously. Like that's like what we live for. So we're there and we're around. You can find us pretty easily.
I'm Amanda.
I'm Andrew.
We're excited for you to check out Jawa.
Now that we've gotten to know the people behind the brand, it's only strengthened our commitment and dedication to building a relationship with Jawa and their wonderful community.